I was 6 hours into a solo drive through winding mountain roads when I reminded myself, again, that this would be worth it. That this time, things would be different. That maybe, just maybe, my family had started to see me as someone they actually wanted around, not just someone who filled space awkwardly at the table between the couples and the kids. It was a long shot, but I took it anyway. The trip had been planned for months. A week-long family reunion at a sprawling cabin near Lake Waverly. My parents, my 2 older brothers, their wives, and their kids, plus me. When Mom brought it up on one of our rare phone calls, she sounded almost hopeful. "We booked this gorgeous place with enough room for everyone," she'd said. "It'll be good to have all my babies in one place again." I hesitated, of course. It had been years since I'd felt anything but out of place at family events, but she insisted. Even my brother Nick texted me, "It'll be fun. Come on, we haven't all been together in forever." So I said yes. I rearranged work deadlines, rescheduled meetings, and packed everything I could think of into my car. Hiking boots, wine, board games I liked that nobody else ever wanted to play. I even brought Lily, my niece, a leather-bound sketchbook from the boutique where I worked. She liked to draw, and I remembered. By the time I pulled up to the cabin, the sun had dipped low, painting the sky in warm streaks of peach and gray. The cabin was even more beautiful than the pictures. Wide wraparound porch, tall pine trees, string lights already glowing in the twilight. I took a deep breath. I was ready. I walked up the steps with my bag and cooler, opened the front door, and stepped into chaos. Kids were running up and down the hallway. Someone was chopping vegetables in the kitchen. I heard my dad's unmistakable laugh from the living room. The whole house buzzed with noise and warmth and family. No one noticed I'd arrived. I stood there for a beat, suitcase still in hand. Then Mom turned from the kitchen island and spotted me. "Erin, you made it," she called out, wiping her hands on a towel. "Everyone's here already. Go on, make yourself at home." She gave me a quick hug, then turned back to stir something on the stove. Nick waved from the couch. "Hey sis, took you long enough?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, traffic." No one offered to help with my bags. No one asked how the drive was. I found a corner near the stairs and set down my things, then walked over to say hi to the others. Kids hugged me politely. My sister-in-law barely looked up from her phone. I told myself they were just distracted, caught in the usual first-day bustle. "Where should I put my stuff?" I asked eventually, turning to my mom. She blinked. "Oh, right. She looked around. "Well, Nick and Rachel have the main floor guest room, and Sam and Anna took the upstairs suite since they have the baby." I nodded, waiting. "And your dad and I are in the master, obviously," she added. So I frowned. "So where am I staying?" She looked briefly uncomfortable. "Well, there's the pull-out couch in the den." I stared at her. "You're putting me on a sofa?" She hesitated. "We didn't think you'd mind. I mean, it's just you. Just me." She said it so casually, like it explained everything. Like being single at 30 meant I was automatically the one who could be squeezed wherever was convenient. "I drove 6 hours," I said quietly. "I know, honey. But we had to prioritize the couples and the kids. You understand, right?" I didn't, but I nodded anyway. I walked into the den, which was basically a half room off the kitchen with zero privacy, and a couch that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since 2004. Someone had already piled throw blankets and a basket of toys on it. I just stood there for a moment, heart heavy, wondering how I still managed to be the forgotten one, even when I showed up. I lasted one night on that couch. It wasn't even a real pullout, just a sagging love seat that made my back ache and my neck cramp. I barely slept, between the kids waking up to use the bathroom and the thudding of refrigerator doors opening and closing. At 2 a.m., someone microwaved pizza rolls. At 3, my nephew left the TV on, volume blaring cartoons. By sunrise, I was exhausted and quietly humiliated. At breakfast, I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat at the long wooden table, where my brothers and their wives were laughing over inside jokes from the night before. "Sleep okay?" Sam asked without looking up. I forced a smile. "Not really?" "Yeah," he chuckled, "that couch is brutal." Then he went back to eating. I stared down at my plate and felt the sting rise behind my eyes. I told myself to hold it in. Don't make a scene. Don't be that person. But I couldn't keep swallowing it anymore. So after breakfast, I found Mom alone in the laundry room folding towels. The door creaked as I stepped in. "Hey," I started quietly. "Can we talk?" She looked up, startled. "Of course. Everything okay?" I stood for a moment, trying to figure out how to put years of built-up feelings into a few clean sentences. I feel like I don't matter here." Her brows knit together. "What? Why would you say that? You didn't book me a room, Mom." "It's not like that," she said quickly. "We just had to prioritize space. Everyone else has families, you know that." "I'm family too," I replied, more sharply than I meant to. "But somehow, I'm always the one who's fine being left out. Fine with the couch, fine with last-minute invitations, fine not being asked if I'm okay." She sighed, like I was making her job harder than it already was. "Erin, don't do this. Don't turn a nice trip into drama." I blinked. "I'm not trying to make drama. I'm trying to tell you that I'm hurt." Just then, Caitlin, my sister-in-law, walked past the door, clearly having heard the last line. She paused, leaned on the frame with a smirk. "Seriously? This again?" she scoffed. "Not everything's about you, Erin." "I never said it was," I snapped. "I'm saying no one treats me like I belong here." "Oh, come on," she rolled her eyes. "You get weird every time we do something as a family. Like you're just looking for a reason to feel offended." I turned back to Mom, who said nothing, just folded another towel like this conversation was background noise. "I'm tired," I said. "Tired of always being the extra piece. Tired of being the one everyone assumes will adapt while the rest of you get comfort, space, respect." Caitlin laughed. "You sound like a teenager. God, grow up." "I am grown," I said coldly, "which is why I finally see what I've been ignoring for years." Caitlin shook her head, muttered something about drama queen energy, and walked off. And still, Mom didn't look at me. She just said, "Let's not ruin this trip for everyone, okay?" That was the moment it snapped. I realized I could have screamed. I could have cried. I could have told them all the little things they'd never noticed, like how I cried in the bathroom every Christmas when no one remembered what I did for work, or how I bought gifts that went unopened, unread, unthanked, or how I watched them post group photos from brunches I was never invited to. But none of it would matter, because they weren't listening. They never were. And suddenly, I didn't want to be heard by them anymore. I wanted silence. I wanted peace. I wanted out. I didn't make a scene. I didn't yell or slam anything. I didn't send a dramatic group text or call anyone out in front of the kids. I just zipped up my suitcase, quietly packed my things, and slipped out the front door while the rest of the family gathered for a group hike I hadn't even been told about. The air outside was cool, still, heavy with pine and distant birdsong. For a moment I just stood on the porch, watching them all through the window, smiling, laughing, wrapping jackets around toddlers, checking trail maps. They looked like a painting of family harmony. Except I knew where the cracks were now. And they weren't in me. I pulled out my phone and opened the Airbnb app. Found a tiny guest house 20 minutes away, a converted barn with big windows and a fireplace. Available immediately. Booked it without thinking twice. Then I called a rideshare. While I waited on the gravel driveway, I took one last look at the cabin. The one where I'd spent more time trying to belong than actually being included. No one noticed I was leaving. No one texted to ask where I went. And that hurt more than anything. But strangely, it also felt like relief. Like I was finally done begging to be seen. The guest house was perfect, quiet, clean. A soft bed with real pillows and a bathroom that didn't smell like childhood resentment. I dropped my bags, changed into a soft sweater, and curled up on the couch with a book I'd been meaning to read for months but never found the headspace to open. For dinner, I found a small local place down the road. Warm lighting, soft jazz, the kind of menu that didn't try too hard. I ordered steak and roasted vegetables, a glass of Merlot. The waiter smiled at me like I mattered, like I wasn't just someone to tolerate. He didn't know anything about me, but for those 90 minutes I felt more seen than I had in years of family reunions. Halfway through the meal, I checked my phone. Nothing. No missed calls, no new messages, just silence. And in that silence, something inside me settled. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even disappointed anymore. I was simply done. Done waiting for the people who should have known me best to finally care enough to make room for me. Done excusing their negligence as just how they are. Done molding myself into shapes that fit their convenience. I realized, maybe they weren't trying to hurt me, but that didn't make the hurt any less real. Intent doesn't erase impact, and pretending it's not there doesn't heal it. It just teaches you to bleed quietly. That night, I lit the fireplace and sat by the window with my wine. I didn't cry. I didn't replay the laundry room conversation or dissect every insult Caitlin had thrown at me. I just listened, to the wind, to the quiet, to the soft cracking of wood as it burned. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was tired, yes, sad, sure. But I was also calm, because I had finally walked away, from the roles they assigned me, from the small space they allowed me, from the hope that they would one day see the damage their silence caused. This wasn't rebellion. This was reclamation. The ride back to the city was quiet. The trees blurred past in long green lines, and I stared out the window with a sense of weightlessness I hadn't felt in years. Not happiness exactly, but peace. A new kind of lightness that came from finally laying down something I hadn't realized I was carrying. When I got home, I didn't unpack right away. I watered my plants, opened my windows, fed my fish. Then I sat on the edge of my bed and just existed. No one needing me to be pleasant, no one asking me to not make things awkward, no one expecting me to smile through being overlooked. I checked my phone once that night. There was a message from my mom. "Erin, we noticed you left early. Everything okay? Hope you made it home safe." 12 hours too late. I didn't reply. Because if they didn't notice me slipping away in real time, they didn't deserve my postscript. In the days that followed, I waited for someone, anyone, to reach out with something more. An apology, an acknowledgement, even just a real question like, "Why did you leave?" But it never came. Nick sent a meme. Caitlin tagged me in a group photo with a sarcastic "wish you were here." It was like my absence was more inconvenient than my presence had ever been valuable. So I made a decision. No more family group chats. No more default holiday plans. No more trying to show up for people who never really wanted me there to begin with. I didn't announce it. I didn't write some final declaration of boundaries. I simply stopped participating in a system that had always asked me to shrink. Instead, I poured myself into the life I'd been neglecting. I signed up for a painting class at the community center. I took myself out for solo brunches on Sundays. I bought fresh flowers every week, just for me. I started reading books that made me cry in public cafes, and I didn't apologize for it. I built a soft, quiet, stubborn little life where I mattered, where I didn't have to explain why I wanted what I wanted, where my needs didn't make me difficult. 2 months after I left the cabin, I received a letter in the mail, handwritten. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. "Mom," it was short, careful. "Maybe we haven't always made space for you the way we should have. I don't know how to fix what's already been done, but I do want you to know that I'm thinking of you, that I miss you." I sat with the letter for a long time, not angry, not moved either, just still. Because the truth was, I didn't miss them. I missed the version of family I'd always hoped they could be, but not the one they'd chosen to be. And that distinction was everything. I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I didn't need anything from her anymore. I had already chosen myself. People talk a lot about closure, like it's something you're handed when the other person finally apologizes, when they see the hurt, when they say the right words. But I've learned that closure isn't a gift someone gives you. It's a door you decide to close yourself. No ceremony, no applause, just the quiet click of choosing peace over permission. That was what I felt the night I reread my mom's letter for the last time, folded it neatly, and placed it in a drawer I rarely opened. I didn't cry. I didn't even sigh, because for the first time in years I didn't need anything from her. Not explanation, not regret, not even love. I had built a world that didn't orbit around her approval anymore. By the time Thanksgiving rolled around, the group chat lit up again. Photos of turkeys, tablescapes, kids in matching pajamas. No one asked if I was coming, and I didn't offer. Instead, I spent the holiday on a hiking trail just outside the city, wrapped in a fleece jacket, sipping hot cider from a thermos, watching the sunlight filter through gold leaves. I passed a couple with a dog, exchanged warm smiles with strangers, and sat by a clearing to journal without interruption. It was quiet, and it was mine. Not an echo of forced laughter, not a shadow of comparison, just me, and the sound of my own breath, steady and sure. I started sharing my story anonymously on a small blog, then on a podcast, then through quiet DMs from strangers who'd lived the same quiet ache of being the one who never quite fit, the overlooked sister, the forgotten daughter, the difficult one simply because they named what no one wanted to hear. I thought it was just me, they wrote. It never is. And that's the real healing, I think. Not in revenge, not in confrontation, but in realizing you're not alone, and you're not broken. You were just surrounded by people who didn't know how to hold you properly. Now, when I set the table for dinner, it's just me, and the things I chose. The chipped ceramic plate I found at the flea market, the lavender candle I light only on rainy evenings, the dog-eared novel I leave open by the window, the playlist I made called Coming Home to Myself. Sometimes my family texts, sometimes they don't. I don't chase their silence. I don't interpret it anymore. Because sometimes not responding is the response. Not in bitterness, but in peace. The kind of peace that comes when you finally realize you were never too much. You were just never in the right room, so you built one yourself, and filled it with everything you used to wait for others to give you. Belonging, grace, and the unshakable knowing that you are enough. It had been a little over 2 years since the cabin, since the couch that wasn't a bed, since the conversation that wasn't really a conversation, since the silence I chose and never regretted. I thought I had closed that chapter, sealed it shut with gentleness and clarity, not anger, not spite, just finality. But then in early spring, I got the invitation. It arrived in a cream envelope with my full name written in ink I recognized immediately. Mom's handwriting, still curved and careful, like she was writing to a child who might disappear if she pressed too hard. Inside was a folded card. No grand announcements, just a simple message. We're having a family brunch at the house next Sunday. Just the immediate family. I'd love to see you there if you'd like to come. Love, Mom. I stared at it for a long time, not because I didn't know what to do, but because for the first time in years I didn't feel anything. No wave of panic, no ache in my stomach, no hopeful flutter that maybe this time will be different. Just neutrality. It was a strange kind of progress. I left the invitation on the kitchen counter for 3 days before touching it again. When Sunday came, I woke up early, made tea, watered my plants, went for a long walk. I told myself I didn't have to go, that not going was still an act of strength. But something kept tugging at me, not curiosity, not guilt, just a quiet question. Could I show up now, not for them, but for myself? Could I walk into that house not needing anything? Not recognition, not apology, not space at the table, because I had already given all of that to myself. At noon, I got in the car. The house looked the same, modest, beige siding, wine chimes by the front door, tulips blooming too early in the front garden. I parked, turned off the engine, and sat for a moment in silence. Then I walked to the door and knocked once. Mom opened it quickly, like she'd been waiting. "Hi," she said softly like a prayer. "Hi," I answered. She didn't hug me, didn't cry, didn't flood me with stories. She just stepped back and said, "Come in, your brothers are in the backyard." I stepped inside. The air smelled like cinnamon and lemon cleaner. Same as always. Familiar but not quite warm. Voices floated in from the yard. Kids laughing, someone uncorking a bottle. I followed the sound. And there they were. Nick, Sam, their wives, the nieces and nephews who had all grown a little since the last time I saw them. Caitlin too, standing by the grill with sunglasses on her head and a drink in hand. She saw me first. Her expression didn't change, but I saw the flicker in her eyes. Recognition. Then calculation. I gave her nothing, just a polite nod, then turned to Lily, my favorite niece, who smiled shyly and waved. "Hi, Aunt Erin," she said. That was all I needed. I sat beside her, asked about school, about art class, about whether she still liked sketching animals. She did. She even brought her notebook. I asked to see it. She beamed. No one interrupted. No one asked me why I came. No one apologized either. And that was okay, because this time I hadn't come looking for apology. I hadn't come to be folded back in. I had come as myself, whole, steady, not waiting. Mom brought out a plate of pastries and set them beside me. She didn't say anything, just gently pushed the lemon tart closer. I didn't say thank you. I didn't need to. The sky turned gold in the late afternoon. Someone turned on music. The kids played tag. The adults slipped into conversation. And I stayed, longer than I expected. Not because I felt at home, but because I finally understood that I didn't need this place to be home anymore. I was no longer here to prove anything, not to reclaim my space, not to test whether they had changed. I already knew who I was now, and I liked her. I stayed for a slice of cake, for a laugh with Lily, for the breeze that ruffled the tablecloth like it was waving hello. Then I stood up, dusted off my dress, and quietly said goodbye. No one begged me to stay, but Mom walked me to the car. At the door she paused. "Thanks for coming," she said. Her voice was thinner now. "It was good to see you." I nodded. "You too." She opened her mouth, then closed it. Then said, almost too softly to hear, "I'm trying, Aaron." I looked at her. The woman who gave me life, but not always space to breathe. "I know," I said, and I meant it. Trying wasn't the same as being there. But it was something. That night, I lit a candle by my window, curled up with my journal, and wrote one sentence. I came back whole. Not to start over. Not to forget. Not even to forgive, just to witness who I'd become. And to know that even in the place I once felt invisible, I could still choose to shine.